Hi guys, SDJRSNF88 speaking. We're a review of an extremely anticipated model, and one that I've really been looking forward to. The all-new BR Standard Franco Crosti 9F from Hornby. Announced as part of the 2014 range back in December 2013, the model, like the recently reviewed 700 class, was affected by a number of delays in production. But again, the wait looks to be well worth it, especially for a model that a few years ago we would have never considered to see in ready-to-run form, due to the small number and short lifespan of the rail class. Two versions were announced and are now available. The first, R3274 in British Railways late black livery with smoke deflector, and the second, this sample, R3273 in British Railways early black livery without smoke deflector. Naturally, I got this model from my local model shop, Signals Models, for the great price of £115 and 20p. But I cashed in one of my loyalty cards, which are available to all customers, and ended up receiving the model for £103 and 68p, which is great value. Now, although the model is part of the Railroad range, it comes in this new hybrid style of packaging, which features the Railroad branding combined with the beautiful artistic designs of the premium range boxes, which feature a design of the model on the front, top, and a brief history of the class on the back. Now, I really like this feature, as on previous Railroad models this wasn't included. So I scanned through this and I got a bit of brief history about the class. The Franco Crosti 9Fs were built as an experimental design by British Railways in 1955 to see if the Crosti design would improve the efficiency and energy consumption of a steam locomotive. A total of 10 locomotives were built at Crewe Works and were numbered from 92020 to 92029. The Franco Crosti Boiler design captured hot gases that would otherwise be wasted on a conventional steam locomotive and used them to help raise the temperature of water in the secondary boiler, also known as the water feed heater. In theory, this would mean the engine would be more efficient and burn less coal. Sadly, the experiment did not yield the hoped for benefits for the class, with the efficiency of the locomotive not being increased sufficiently enough to justify the increased costs and complexity of the design. Between 1959 and 1961, all members of the class had been converted to operate conventionally, with their water feed heaters all being sealed off. This affected their ability to generate steam, and their power classification was downgraded from 9F to 8F. Withdrawals began in 1966, with all members of the class being withdrawn by 1967. All were scrapped, and sadly none survived to preservation. So, without further ado, let's take a look inside the packaging. Inside the outer box, we have the usual paperwork, which features a maintenance sheet, which shows you how to maintain your locomotive, including oiling points, and how to fit a DCC decoder, which I believe is in the locomotive in this model, not in the tender. So I'll put that to one side. Then we come on to the actual model itself, which is in a polystyrene tray. Now, of course, the model is a Railroad range model, so to keep costs down, they have featured it in this polystyrene tray, which does make it a bit of a pain to get out, but we'll soon find out in a moment. It comes with this lovely sort of plastic shield, so if I fold this up, there are two little bits of sellotape holding it on here and here, so it's very well protected in there, and you could start to see the this beautiful and intriguing designer locomotive, and although it's a Railroad range model, I can see plenty of detail on that, and I'm really looking forward to getting this out onto the track. Now, if I pop that back down there a second, in the top right hand corner we have this little bag, which is a little separately fitted detailing pack, and in there, I'm not sure if you can see this, we have a NEM coupler, which is for the front bogie, and if you wish to run the train backwards hauling stock. And also there are two little vac pipes in there, one for the front and one for the tender. So I'll just fold that back up and I'll put those back in there. So without further ado, let's get the model out and pop her on the track. So I'll be right back in a moment. Well, here she is on the layout, and what can I say? Hornby really have done an outstanding job in recreating this rugged and intriguing locomotive. Here we can see the Crosti design in a bit more detail. The main boiler there was used to generate steam much like a conventional locomotive for operation, but once the steam passed through the cylinders, instead of being expelled up the funnel, it was recycled into the secondary boiler or feed water heater, As you can see, there is a second smokebox door below the main smokebox door on the front, which is for the secondary boiler. Now that boiler runs parallel with the main boiler above and can be seen later on in the review. It was used to preheat water for the locomotive, so in theory the loco would use less coal to heat water for operational running. Once the steam was used up in that secondary boiler, it was then expelled up the funnel on the side of the locomotive, which is one of the most iconic features and will be seen later on again in detail in the review. Now, one thing I forgot to mention in the previous clip was about the polystyrene tray. Now, I mentioned that it's always hard to get the models out of the tray, and one thing I failed to notice until I actually started getting the model out is that there are 4 crescent slots. One above and one below the locomotive, and one above and one below the tender. This means you can stick your fingers in and pull the locomotive out from the front, and she slid out really easily. And I've mentioned this countless times in reviews, and it is great to see Hornby are listening to little niggles like that. It really makes getting the model out of the box so much easier. So hats off to Hornby. It really is, just a little feature like that is absolutely great. So I thought I'd mention that before I forget it. But anyway, let's carry on with the review. Starting off at the front of the loco, we have the iconic double smokebox doors, which Hornby have captured extremely well, with both a wealth of moulded and separately fitted detail. Now if I zoom in on the main smokebox door, we have the latches around the outside there, which are part of the moulding, but are very well moulded that they almost look like separately fitted details. This also includes the lamp iron, which again looks like a separately fitted detail, but is part of the moulding. We have the handrails, which run alongside the boiler, and the one that runs along the top of the smokebox door there. Those are separately fitted and have been very well applied. We have the running number, 92027, and the shed plate code, 15A, which is Willingborough Shed. Both are very crisply applied and are very easily legible. If we move on down, we can see plenty more detail, including rivets and the steps there, again all part of the moulding. And we have the second smokebox door, which again is very well captured. Off to the left and to the right, we have 2 sander pipes, again part of the moulding, but are very well captured. As you can see, there are little rivets around them, and also the little latches that hold the lids on. Below that, we have part of the framework there, and we have the builder's plate, which reads, built 1955, Crewe. The buffer beam features a wealth of rivet detail, and a very well captured coupling hook, which is separately painted black. Off to the left, we have the little slot there, designed for the separately fitted vacuum pipe included in the detailing pack seen earlier on. The buffers are again well captured, and are turned metal, but are also sprung, which is very interesting for a railroad model. The front pony truck is an interesting design, with the steps being part of its moulding, similar to that seen on other Hornby RailRoad 9Fs. Personally, I don't feel that this detracts too much from the look of the overall model, as it rides quite close to the actual frame above. But for those of you wishing to create a more realistic looking model, I'm sure it's very easy to cut those steps off and add your own separately fitted steps to the running plate above. The Crosti 9F features a completely retooled chassis to that seen on the previous RailRoad 9F. As can be seen in front of the cylinders, there is a wealth of moulded detail, including the sandpipes and rivet detail. As we move along, we have the finely tuned wheels, which look a lot more to scale than that seen on the previous railroad sample. We also have the beautifully captured linkage. In between the frames behind the wheels, we can see the secondary boiler, which is an extremely nice feature, as it would be clearly visible on the real locomotive. As we move along, we also see the side funnel, which again we will look at in a bit more detail in a moment. Moving on to the rear of the locomotive itself, we have the firebox, which overhangs over the top of the rear wheel, and again very characteristic of the real locomotive, as well as all this beautiful pipework. Although moulded, it clearly looks separately fitted and is very well captured. Moving on to the side of the boiler, and we have the iconic side funnel, which is one of the features I really love about the Crosti design. As can be seen, Hornby have really done an outstanding job in recreating this iconic feature, with the intricate pipework below, the rivet detail, and recreating that superb shape of the funnel itself. Now the BR late version features a smoke deflector, which covers up part of the shape of the funnel, but I wanted to keep it exposed, and the early version without the smoke deflector was just a ticket, and it really does look the part. Now, one thing I would love to see is a fellow modeller in the near future fitting a smoke generator to this model. I think it would look superb on the layout. Whilst on the subject of funnels, the Crosti Design features a funnel in the conventional location. As can be seen, there is a hatch inside. This hatch would be opened when the locomotive was being primed, allowing it to breathe, though when the locomotive was operational it would be sealed shut, meaning the exhaust would then travel into the second boiler before being expelled out the funnel on the side. Hornby have done a brilliant job in capturing this little detail and the hatch inside. Again, it is part of the moulding, but very crisply done and very fine. Along the boiler itself there is a wealth of moulded pipework, separately fitted handrails and other details. Again, all very well picked out. As you can see, there are even the wash plugs on the side there. Moving on to the smoke box itself, we have the steps. This is so the crew could climb up and access the hatch previously seen. Again, as we move on to the front of the smoke box, we can see the beautifully separately fitted handrails curve around and join onto the front. Similar detail continues along the top of the boiler, featuring more separately fitted handrails, moulded pipework and other details. As we move along, we pass over the dome and safety valves. The safety valves are separately fitted, turn sections of brass, and really do enhance the overall look of the model. We then come onto the firebox, which features a wealth of pipework, including the whistle. This again is all moulded, but almost looks separately fitted. It continues down the side of the firebox, passing more moulded detail, including the wash plugs, rivets, and steps. The cab sides feature a number of details which are very surprising to a railroad model, including flush glazing. There is also the sectional glazing, which is included to protect the driver when leaning out the window. This is very surprising for a railroad model. Again, the text is very well applied, featuring the 9F power classification and running number. The roof vent on the cab is moulded, but unlike on other models, it is moulded open, which is a very nice feature, as more often than not, this would have been open when the locomotive was in operation. Inside the cab, there is a wealth of detail. Must say, some of the highest detail I have seen for a cab on a railroad model. It really does look stunning. Now, the tender is permanently connected to the loco, but can be unscrewed via the screw on the bottom, so you can access the cab detail and paint it if you wish. Moving on to the tender, and the detail continues, featuring more separately fitted handrails, pipework and other details. Now, the locomotive is permanently connected to the tender via a connector directly under the front step there. This could be simply unscrewed and the two separated. The tender features a good space inside for a DCC sound unit, and also a little slot is provided to allow wires to run from the locomotive to the tender, as the decoder is hidden in the smoke box. The tender frames feature a good amount of detail, including pipework, rivet detail and the axle boxes themselves. On the caps of the axle boxes, it's clearly to read the text British Railways, which is part of the moulding. One thing I forgot to mention is the tender does not feature tender pickups, but there is plenty of room inside for if you wish to do so yourself. The tender body itself has been nicely captured, featuring a wealth of rivet detail, and the BR early emblem has been neatly applied and is clearly legible. On top of the tender, we have a moulded coal load, which, for those of you wishing to replace it with a more realistic load, will probably require a bit of cutting to remove. As well as the coal load, we have the water filler caps and the ladder as well, which again we'll look at a bit more detail in the next clip. On the rear of the tender, we have more rivet detail, along with two plates which are again clearly legible. The ladder is metal and separately fitted. There is more rivet detail on the buffer beam, and the coupling hook is again well modelled. Off to the left, there is a little hole provided for the vacuum pipe, which is also provided in the separately fitted detailing pack. Like the front, the buffers are also sprung. The model also comes with the pre-fitted NEM tension lock coupling, which is seen clearly at the bottom of the shot there. Now, without further ado, let's see how the model performs. Well, here we are, the moment of truth. Let's see how she performs. Now again, this is straight from the box without a run-in, and is on the Hornby HM2000, which is DC. So without further ado, I'll give her a bit of juice. So look at that. Nice smooth pull away there. It's a tiny bit of a stick. But then again, remember, this is straight from the box. This is, not really surprising. She does need a good proper run-in. Half an hour in each direction. Over the point work there. No trouble. Slow her down so she doesn't go out of shot. If I change the direction, let's see if I get a nice smooth crawl over that pair of points there. Remember, she only has pickups in the loco, not in the tender. So it'd be interesting to see what happens here. Here we go. Look at that. Straight over them, no problem. Now she is fitted with a 5-pole motor, which is one of the more popular motors. Famous for being very smooth and very powerful, which is perfect for this type of locomotive. For slow moving heavy freight trains. Look at that, she just looks stunning. Slow her down there. Bit of abrupt stop. I change direction again and bring her a tiny bit forward. But like I said, she does need a good run-in. She is a tiny bit jerky. But once she's had a good half an hour run-in each direction, I'm sure she'll smooth out nicely. Slow her down there. There we go. Well, on to the scores. So there you have it, the all-new Crosti Boiler 9F. And what can I say? Hats off to Hornby. They really have done an absolutely outstanding job in recreating these rugged, interesting looking locomotives. I mean, it is just beautiful to look at. Now, I think the railroad range should really be praised. It's received quite a bit of criticism in the past, but it really shows what can be done. I mean, the railroad range has brought us not only the Crosti here, but the P2 and the Duke of Gloucester, two other models that we would have never thought to have seen in ready-to-run form, due to the, them not being many members in the class, and also the short lifespan of the locos. And the railroad range has, managed to bring us these models in ready-to-run form, and Hornby should really be praised for that. And I would love to see more locomotives like this in the near future. Maybe even the rebuilt version of the Crosti. So, on to the scores. Overall detail for the model, that has to be a 10 out of 10. Hornby really have done an absolutely outstanding job. They show that it doesn't all have to be separately fitted, and moulded details can do the model justice. And it really has here. I mean, they've captured that double smokebox door perfectly, and that iconic side funnel. That is a piece of art. I mean, the shape of that is just amazing. So it has to be a 10 out of 10. Livery application. Now that too also has to be a 10 out of 10. It is the best livery I've seen applied to a railroad model to date. All the builder's plates are clearly legible, the number on the side of the cab is crisp, and then you've got that British Railways emblem on the tender, which is very neatly applied and again very well finished. Performance. Now that has to be a 10 out of 10. It's fitted with a 5-pole motor, which is got to be one of the best motors which you can fit to a ready-to-run model to date, and I can't wait to see its haulage capability. It really is nice and heavy, so it has got plenty of tractive effort, so I can't wait to see how many waggons it can haul. Again, it does need a bit of a run-in, but I'm sure once it's had a run-in, it will be as sweet as a nut, much like any other Hornby model I have got recently, including ones in the railroad range. So, overall score, it has to be a massive 10 out of 10 and beyond. It is just absolutely outstanding. I mean, whatever region you model, I mean, you can easily sneak one of these in, I would say. It is just amazing locomotive. It's just, uncomprehensible. I'm lost for words here. I mean, even if you don't model the set region, because these did run on a very small section of British Rail, but you know, I'm sure you could sneak one in, whatever the cost. It is just an amazing model, and for just over £100, it is brilliant value for money as well. So again, hats off to Hornby. So I guess that's it for this review, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to bring you a running video of the model very soon. So I guess that's all for now. So this has been SDJR 788 speaking, and thanks for watching.